Hey, welcome to Watch and Waiting on the Lord. It's October 25th. I have a couple stories to read, and if I feel I have time, I'm going to read you something um, in Macabees, something I had never ever heard before, and I never knew this miracle occurred. So, if I have time in the end here. Today's a day to get saved. Take a look at these battles and news, and that's what I'll say. I mean, look at the stories; they're just spiraling out of control. And day by day, this is what happens. So it's a perfect time to get saved. It doesn't matter if it's going to be Ezekiel 38, 39, Psalm this, Psalm that, right? It's looking that way, and some have been fulfilled, I think. So Psalm 83 for sure, and so I think it's time to get saved. Okay, let's get to this here. This is War News 24/7. I have to convert it to English. Title: Armageddon. Plan to evacuate 600,000 Americans from the Middle East. United States deploys 12 new anti-aircraft systems, I think THAAD, and they're giving them Iron Dome. They supplied them, So an F-16 squadron. France sends FS Tonnerre. In moves that refer to a generalized ignition in the Middle East and Armageddon, the USA is moving forward as Israel has publicly admitted the ground operation has not yet begun because the United States has not completed its preparations. According to U.S. media, the Biden administration is drawing up a plan to evacuate hundreds of thousands of American citizens from the Middle East if the bloodshed in Gaza doesn't stop, according to 4 officials familiar with the United States government emergency planning. I don't know why people put themselves in that position. The officials speaking, pray for them though. The officials speaking on condition of anonymity because of the detail of the internal deliberations said Americans living in Israel and neighboring Lebanon were of particular concern, though they stressed that an evacuation of this magnitude was considered a worst-case scenario. What comes to my mind right away is Dunkirk, where they had to save the expeditionary force in the beginning of World War II with Britain and France. The U.S. administration, despite its strong public support for Israel, is deeply concerned by the prospect of escalation, and in recent days has turned its attention in part to the complex logistics of moving large numbers of people suddenly, according to three of the people familiar with the discussions. So I would imagine cruise ships and stuff like that, they would lobby cruise ships because there's a lot of them. There are about 600,000 American citizens in Israel. That's a lot, And another 86,000 believed to be in Lebanon when Hamas struck, according to initial State Department estimates. Pardon me, I just literally biked across my city and back. There were about 600,000, oh yeah, I just said that. But now the U.S. administration concerns extend beyond those 2 countries as officials monitor street protests that have spread across the Arab world, putting both the United States personnel and civilians in the region at increased risk. I mean, it's around the world, right? There's risk everywhere. Top U.S. officials have been reluctant to publicly discuss such contingency plans, hoping to avoid causing panic among Americans in the region. But their stance has changed in recent days to convey anxiety about other actors entering the conflict. Last week, the State Department issued an advisory to all citizens, U.S. citizens, this is War News 24/7, around the world to exercise increased caution due to increased tensions in various locations around the world. potential terrorist attacks and demonstrations or violent actions against citizens and interests of the United States. At the same time, the 5 U.S. Air Force C-17A Globemaster III-5892, Globemaster III aircraft departed Pope Air Force Base. I don't know. So, it's probably because this is not English that there's mistakes in this. Air Force Base at Fort Liberty, Bragg, bound for Europe. All have similar shipping codes. The U.S. plans to send its entire stockpile of Iron Dome missiles to Israel, including 2 artillery pieces and more than 300 missiles, a U.S. official said. At the same time, 12 additional anti-aircraft systems are being developed in the Middle East, so they're putting like a lot of them. And the THAAD, there it is. This is a THAAD anti-ballistic missile, so this is like anti-intercontinental ballistic missile system artillery unit en route to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Well, at least 11 MIM-104 Patriot air defense systems will be deployed to sites in Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Pardon me, I'm going to take a sip of water here. I'm so dehydrated. I went on a long bike ride, so pardon me. At the same time, the Pentagon announced that an additional squadron of F-16 fighters jets arrived yesterday. There's a lot of tankers in the air. Like I heard there's a lot. This is a lot of fighters. Yesterday in the U.S. Central Command CENTCOM area of responsibility in the Middle East, the U.S. Air Force Command has decided to move the 119th Expeditionary Wing from the New Jersey Air National Guard to the Middle East region. Note that the U.S. previously deployed an A-10 Thunderbolt, that's the Warthog, squadron, those are excellent, to the United Arab Emirates on the 13th of October, and an F-15E squadron to Jordan. Those are excellent too. Air superiority fighters. Oh, this is a long article. The U.S. is evacuating diplomatic personnel from Iraq. Employees of the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and the U.S. Consulate General in Erbil, as well as their family members, will return home, the State Department said in a statement. Family members of non-emergency government personnel at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and the U.S. Consulate General in Erbil have been instructed to evacuate due to heightened security threats, the directive said. Recently, the State Department allowed the families of diplomats and some diplomat personnel to leave Lebanon. Americans wishing to leave the country were also urged not to delay their departure due to the unpredictable security situation. Those remaining in the country are advised to prepare emergency plans. On the table is also the option of evacuating the families of American soldiers, mainly from bases in Bahrain and Kuwait. According to the State Department, the embassy is aware of threats made on social media by Awiyat al-Wad al-Haq, a militia group in Iraq. Hey, try saying that 5 times. It's fast. Against U.S. Military bases in Kuwait. As a result, the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait limits its activity on U.S. military bases to essential and official events only. U.S. citizens are advised to remain vigilant. This just keeps going on. The French Navy has announced that FS Tonnerre L9014, a Mistral class amphibious assault ship, is currently deployed in the eastern Mediterranean to join NATO naval forces, including the battle group led by Gerald Ford, CVN-78 off the coast of Israel. I heard it's the biggest NATO gathering of ships, not ever, but yes, ever for NATO, not ever in the world though. That would be World War II. The French Mistral-class helicopter carrier Tonnerre sailed today from the port of Toulon in the south of France around 1600 local time, 1700 Greek time, according to the French source. During his visit to Cairo, Emmanuel Macron announced earlier today that a French Navy ship would go to support hospitals in Gaza and many commandos, probably. No, I don't know. A French plane will also land on Thursday in Egypt to deliver medical supplies, the French president added, clarifying that more will follow. Humanitarian aid, sorry, keep looking at the time. Humanitarian aid has been gathering in Egypt for days before it trickles into Gaza. Wait till I read the next story. Through the Rafah crossing, the only one not controlled by Israel. Tonnerre is a Mistral-class ship, class of amphibious assault ships. These ships are 200 meters long and amphibious helicopter carriers capable of carrying out in a short period of time operations of crisis management, transport, evacuation of patients, medical support by amphibious and aerial means, according to the French Ministry of Armed Forces. He participated in operations, that's what it says, to evacuate French and European citizens from the Middle East during the Israel-Hezbollah war in 2006 in support of France's military intervention in Mali in 2013. It has 69 hospital beds and 2 surgical units. They're going to need more than that. The Tonnerre can act as a mobile command and control center. It can carry 16 helicopters as well as 60 armored vehicles or 13 Leclerc tanks. I'm not laughing at people being hurt or anything like that. But you know, like this is bigger than, this is big, right? So let's get to the next story here. And I'll try to fit in a Bible reading. Oh, by the way, that hurricane, I don't know the name of it, landed in Acapulco. It went in less than 24 hours. It went from 50 miles per hour to 165. I don't think that's ever happened. Look at the signs in this world, right? They're going to say, you know, hurricanes are not stronger or more, and that may be true, but look at this, like, and that happened in less than 24 hours. Those things never happened before. To me, that's a sign from God. It makes me wonder, you know, Acapulco, why Acapulco? Why is Mexico side keep getting hit? And it just makes me think of people sinning. That's what I think. Because those are the places where people go to sin, right? I'm not saying that's it, but you know, it just makes me think that. Let's read this. I'm going to take a sip first here. I'm going to read this story. It's important. It just keeps getting worse and worse. Pardon me a second. Oh, I just wanted to show, because I know I showed this before. I finished, I'm doing model cars, like I spray paint them, sand them, do all that type of stuff, and I finished my first car. It's actually my second. My first was just a test car, and I had to repaint this about 4 times because it's hard to learn how to do this, but you can see that there. It's a Mustang. Got that there. I did those stripes, the gold stripes. Those aren't decals. That's a decal on the side there, but anyways, it's one of my first. Oh, and here's my second I'm working on. This is that was a Mustang GT350H. And this is a 442W30 1970. That's 1966. And I'm just doing the hood there. I just started learning about that, and I've been doing that for about a month and a half in my spare time. Okay, so I wanted to show that. thousands of Egyptians on the trigger. Israeli plan to displace Palestinians in Sinai leaked. That's funny, eh? Everything gets leaked somehow. Sisi deploys 4th Armored Division. These are Abrams tanks in this division. At a very critical point in the situation throughout the Middle East and Africa, with the president of Egypt, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, inspecting the 4th Armored Division of the 3rd Army in Suez, as announced by his spokesman Ahmed Fahmy. Al-Sisi inspected fighters, tanks, and other military equipment in the Sinai Peninsula on the western tip of the Sinai Peninsula, about 215 kilometers from Egypt's border with the Gaza Strip. As he declared to the army, the military exercise was aimed at recalling the 1973 war against Israel. Adding fuel to the fire was a secret Israeli document from the country's Minister of Information, which, unknown how, was leaked to the Israeli media. We know there's a lot of spies, though, right? Mossad is good. The document examines 3 alternatives for the post-war era, but the alternative that will yield positive and long-term strategic results is to transfer the citizens to Gaza, to Sinai, while calling for the creation of a buffer zone inside Egypt. The inspection came amid a long-running dispute on whether the Sinai Peninsula is safe because of Israel's war with Hamas. The exercise of the 4th Armored Division, 3rd Field Army, and the Egyptian Armed Forces in the city of Suez took place as part of the celebrations for the 50th anniversary of the victory of the October War, 1973 Yom Kippur War. The exercise also made their first appearance of the Egyptian Army's new artillery systems, K9, which it bought in 2022 from Korea. Egypt will acquire 200 artillery systems along with other support vehicles in a deal worth $1.7 billion. The video shows, and I'm going to leave this description box, the following weapon systems: M1A1 Abrams, M113 APCs, those are Bradleys, I think, M270 multiple launch rocket systems, M109 howitzers, K9A1 Apaches, KA-52s, wing long drones, TOR M2, I don't know if these are anti-aircrafts, 4 different kinds. The army will secure the Egyptian border. During his presence in Suez, al-Sisi emphasized that the role of the army is to secure the Egyptian borders, and therefore, and you know, you wonder, could Egypt turn? This is Bible prophecy, so in light of the facts, we should, but be very careful about what is happening, and don't jump to the gun, I guess, right? Just watch. We should use our capabilities wisely. While he suggested the need for a diplomatic solution for the Palestinian issue, it's very important when you have this kind of power to use it sensibly, wisely, maturely, and not to overreach and have illusions about your power, Sisi said, referring to the internal calls for Egypt to get involved in the conflict. You have this ability to stand up for yourself. Never let anger or heat get you over the edge, he added. In any case, Egypt, he said, has significant military capabilities, which it would only use wisely and for reasons of self-defense. I'll cut in there and I'll say, when I look at this picture and I see a whole line of Abrams tanks, trucks, artillery systems, whatever, I look at that and I already know that Israel, from the United States, there's a bomb called I think it's a CBU 195 or 95. It's called the sensor-fused weapon. And that weapon, just one of them dropped, it's like 1,000 pounds, takes out 40 tanks at once. So I don't think people are really worried about that these days with those kind of weapon systems. That's just one bomb. I'm acquainted with a lot of different weaponry. I'm out of breath. Already he said Egypt has played a role in de-escalating the crisis and finding a diplomatic solution, having engaged in negotiations to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza and the release of hostages while calling for a ceasefire. Israeli media secret plan to displace Palestinians in Sinai. Now, when I read these, okay, I'm just reading you these. It doesn't mean that's my opinion. The Israeli newspaper Calculist revealed a secret plan to relocate the Palestinians to Sinai and elsewhere. The publication reveals that Information Minister Gila Gamliel, I gotta take a break here, very dehydrated. An elite classified document proposes the forcible. When I take breaks in my voice, I get like it lets it rest and it resets itself. Proposes a forcible transfer of displaced people to Sinai after the end of the war in the Gaza Strip. The document bears the Ministry of Information logo and is used for internal discussions between government ministries. The economic newspaper made the revelation yesterday. Tuesday, and according to this, 3 proposals of the minister for the post-war period are included with a dominant solution that will lead to positive and long-term strategic results. The transfer of the citizens to Gaza to Sinai. That sounds pretty good. You know, keep it away from danger and from fighting. That's how I see it. It recommends creation of a control zone several kilometers wide in Egypt, south at the border of Israel, so that evacuated residents cannot return. The move includes 3 stages: the establishment of tent cities, in the Sinai Southwest and the Gaza Strip, the creation of a humanitarian corridor to help the residents, and finally the construction of cities in the northern Sinai. Establishing cooperation with as many other countries as possible so that they can welcome the Palestinian displaced from Gaza, such as the state of Canada. That's weird, man. I was just about to say, I haven't seen Canada stand up. I'm from, I live in Canada, so they were used to be, we were before Justin Trudeau. That's all I have to say. I'm not going to say anything. And some European countries, such as Greece and Spain and other countries of North Africa. Do you know on Facebook we can't even put news stories up right now? I don't even want, there's just so much dictatorial this has turned. Canada's quite bad right now. That will change with the new election, I hope. That's it for that story. I'm going to read you something here to give you some hope in all this, to show you what can happen when Israel calls on God. Will it come to that point? Because we know 2/3 of Israel will be destroyed. Right? We know that. We know that they're going to be 2/3 destroyed, but they'll be saved. So that makes me wonder how many people are going to call on God. Pardon me a second. Just give me a second here. I can't read this all because I ask you to read. I'm going to ask you to read 2 things in Macabees. This is 2nd Macabees, chapter 3. And after this one, I'm going to ask you to read about the 7 martyred brothers, that story, and what Antiochus Epiphanes did to them. He tortured them, and they all went through it. They were so brave. You gotta read that story. That guy was an antichrist. He was definitely. Where was it? So a man named Heliodorus he heard that there was a lot of money in the Jewish temple, and he wanted to go rob it. And there's the Macabees is like the story of Braveheart times 10 or 20. It's you have to read it. That's all I can say. I can't believe it's like 2 generations of the Macabees who fought such injustice, and just other countries trying to invade them. You have to read it. So, but Heliodorus, because of the orders he had from the king, said that this money must in any case be confiscated for the king's treasury. So he set a day and went in to direct the inspection of these funds. So this Heliodorus came in and he pretended he was doing something, but he really wanted to rob it. He tricked the Jews and he got close to the temple. There was no little distress throughout the whole city. The priests prostrated themselves, because I guess they knew, before the altar in their priestly vestments and called toward heaven upon him who had given the law. So, sorry, I should say I should have gone up a bit more, but I can't read. I don't want to read too much. So they're being robbed, and they know how much is going to be taken, and it's going to take away all their livelihoods if all this money is taken away. The priests prostrated themselves before the altar in their priestly vestments and called toward heaven upon him who had given the law about deposits, that he should keep them safe for those who had deposited them. To see the appearance of the high priest was to be wounded at heart. So the high priest his heart was broken, and these people are praying for him because his heart is so broken. I can't explain it properly. So this is what it says. To see the appearance of the high priest was to be wounded at heart, for his face and the change of his color disclosed the anguish of his soul. For terror and bodily trembling had come over the man, which plainly showed to those who looked at him the pain lodged in his heart. People also hurried out of their homes in crowds to make a general supplication, because the holy place was about to be brought into dishonor. Women girded with sackcloth under their breasts thronged the streets. Some of the young men who were kept indoors ran together to the gates, some to the walls, while others peered out the windows. Like, this never happens right there. And holding up their hands to heaven, they all made supplication. There was something pitiable in the prostration of the whole populace and the anxiety of the high priest in his great anguish. So listen to this. While they were calling upon the Almighty Lord that he would keep what he had been entrusted safe and secure for those who had trusted it, Heliodorus went on with what he had decided. But when he arrived at the treasury with his bodyguard, then and there a sovereign of spirits and of all authority caused so great a manifestation that all who had been so bold as to accompany him were astounded by the power of God, became faint with terror, for there appeared to them a magnificently I don't know how to say this word, caparisoned horse with a rider of frightening mien. It rushed furiously at Heliodorus and struck him with its front hoofs. Its rider was seen to have armor and weapons of gold. 2 young men also appeared to him, remarkably strong, gloriously beautiful, and splendidly dressed, who stood on either side of, these are angels, who stood on either side of him and flogged him continuously, inflicting many blows on him. When he suddenly fell to the ground and deep darkness came over him, His men took him up, put him on a stretcher, and carried him away. This man who had just entered the aforesaid treasury with a great retinue and all his bodyguard was now unable to help himself. They recognized clearly the sovereign power of God. That's where I'm going to stop. You don't generally hear people talking about Maccabees, because it's not in the King James Version. I don't think so anyways, but this isn't general reading. I had never read 2nd Maccabees. Anyways, that's it. Just to show you what... There's a lot of godless people in Israel right now, right? But, and maybe that's why 2/3 get killed. I don't know. But they don't deserve it. But I'm not one to judge that, right? That's God, right? So, but we know for sure that 1/3 will be saved. And so I think it's proper to pray for them anyways.